Morning, everybody. I think I'm gonna call this one planting the new orchard. To New Ross, another gorgeous day in New Ross, probably 22 degrees, clear blue sky, few little fluffy clouds showing around, but other than that, just a beautiful day. This here's a little talk about an orchard that I have in plan. Now, part of this stemmed from, if you look on my page, I'm friends with Stephen Hayes of England, and I was looking at his orchard this spring and it kind of got me inspired. I shouldn't say to plant an orchard, to get off my ass and get some plans ahead on the move. So I have my orchard here staked out. I should give you a little background history on that. Where I work, if you'll see on my page, on my YouTube channel page, that where I work, we keep a little orchard. And probably 5 or 6 years ago, we planted an orchard with a dozen apple trees into it and 3 or 4 pears. And it's going to be a heritage orchard, all with varieties from about the 1840s up to 1860s, in around that area. So that kind of got me started into the whole apple thing here a few years ago, and I started doing a little grafting. And I always planned on putting a little orchard in behind my own house, kind of as an extension to the one where I work. Some we could have duplicate varieties if they were older varieties and kind of rare, and well, just to have more varieties. A place where I work only had a limited space for, I think, 14 trees would be the most. So here I have staked out a spot for 20. I think I have 22 stakes here. Now, I have one little seedling tree that I started here a bit ago. That was before I learned, doing some more research into rootstock and that sort of thing. And now this was just a wild seedling tree, but I plan on keeping him. I'm going to take him, I'm going to move him up to the north end of the piece, and he's going to be quite a big tree, and I probably hope to use him as a bit of a windbreak for the rest of the orchard, because I'm pretty well treed around the rest of the piece, but I'm quite open to the north, and sometimes we'll get some quite heavy northeast winds coming down through here, so that might help create a little air barrier. Now, I plan on, in this wild seedling tree, I learned a few years ago that my grandfather used to keep an orchard, and in his orchard it's pretty much all gone, but there's one russet tree that was left, and I plan on taking some cuttings out of his russet, and I think it's a golden russet, and I plan on taking a few cuttings out of his russet, and I'm going to graft into this tree in the spring and hopefully use that as the seedling tree up at the north end of the property. I have, just a bit ago, I have already ordered the rootstock. Now, even though we're in quite a heavy apple growing area, it was quite hard to find the rootstock that I was looking for. Well, I shouldn't say that, quite hard to find rootstock in small quantities. They wanted to sell them in bundles of hundreds, and I really only wanted 25. Now, I have 22 stakes in here, and I'll have the one seedling tree, so I'll only be putting in 21 rootstock. I have 25 ordered. I'm going to take the other 4 and plant them out in the garden, and hopefully propagate some more trees off of those ones, and maybe either have rootstock to sell or have varieties of apples to sell. And plus, in the future, if this here experiment works out quite well, with any luck, I can expand the orchard a little bit. I have these stakes. It was a bit of debate over what kind of spacing I should use, but I have these stakes spaced out at 16-foot centers. I would have went 18 feet just because it is my backyard and I wanted some really nice space between the trees, but to fit the 22 in here that I have, the 16 just seemed to work out for the size of the property. So I think that's what I'm going to go with, and I'll prune to keep my space accordingly. Now the rootstock that I ordered to plant in here will be Bud 118, and I had a lot of debate over what to plant. So, like I say, when in doubt, ask the experts. So I went to some of our local apple growers around here, and they grow just about anything. But they said with the 118, it's a fairly big tree, but it's a nice freestanding tree. It's really cold hardy, which is what we need up around this area. But for a big tree, it's an early bearing tree, and they said it's quite drought resistant, which is not always an issue in Nova Scotia, but we can get some dry times in the summer every once in a while. But at the same time, it'll still grow fairly well in fairly wet ground, which sometimes when it rains around here we can have water run right down the hill, which I'd call kind of wet ground. So that's a little shot of the plans for the orchard. As I plant and grow the trees and do the grafting and that sort of stuff, inspired by Mr. Hayes, I'll post those up as they come. Like anybody knows, an orchard, it's going to be over probably the next 3-5 years. So it'll be quite a long plan into the future. And that's a little bit of the orchard. Goodbye from New Ross, Nova Scotia. Have a great one, everybody.